I should have known something was wrong the day my son DeShawn brought Marcus home. Mom, this is Marcus Cole, DeShawn said, standing in my living room with a tall, well-dressed man who smiled too easily. My new business partner. He's going to be staying with us for a while, if that's okay. Staying here? I looked between them. DeShawn, you didn't ask me first. I know, Mom, I'm sorry. It's just temporary. Marcus and I are starting a tech consulting business and we need to keep overhead low while we get established. 6 months, tops. He'll pay rent. Marcus extended his hand. Mrs. Harris, I apologize for the short notice. I promise I'll be the perfect house guest. And DeShawn's right. This is purely temporary until our startup takes off. I shook his hand, feeling uneasy in a way I couldn't quite name. But DeShawn was 30 years old. He'd been bouncing between jobs since college, never quite finding his footing. If he was finally serious about building something, who was I to stand in his way? 6 months, I said. And yes, you'll pay rent. $400 a month. Done, Marcus said, still smiling that easy smile. That was 6 months ago. And Marcus was still here. The first month was fine. Marcus was polite, clean, kept to himself mostly. He and DeShawn spent hours in DeShawn's room, which they'd converted into an office. I'd hear them talking, the clicking of keyboards, occasional laughter. It looked like real work. What exactly does your business do? I asked DeShawn one evening over dinner. Tech consulting, he said vaguely. We help small businesses optimize their online presence, secure their data, that kind of thing. And you have clients? Building our client base. It takes time, Mom. Rome wasn't built in a day. How are you paying bills while you build? We have some contracts. Nothing big yet, but enough to keep us going. I wanted to believe him. My son had always been smart, just unfocused. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe Marcus was the accountability partner DeShawn needed. But little things started bothering me. The packages. Multiple packages arrived every week, always addressed to different names. When I asked about it, Marcus said they were testing products for potential clients. We need to understand the products before we can consult on them, he explained. It's all part of the business. The packages would arrive, sit in the living room for a day or two, then disappear. I never saw what was inside them. Then there were the laptops. So many laptops. DeShawn's room looked like an electronics store. When I commented on it, he said they needed multiple machines for testing different systems. Each client has different needs, Mom. We can't just use one computer. It made sense. Sort of. But something felt off. The oddest thing was their schedule. They worked at the strangest hours. Sometimes I'd come downstairs at 2 a.m. for water and hear them in DeShawn's room, voices low, keyboards clicking furiously. Other times they'd sleep until noon, then work all night. Tech work doesn't have regular hours, DeShawn explained when I mentioned it. We work when clients need us, when servers are down, when problems happen. My sister Jasmine visited one Saturday and pulled me aside in the kitchen. Pat, what exactly are those boys doing in there? She whispered, jerking her head toward DeShawn's closed door. Running their business. Tech consulting. You believe that? Why wouldn't I? Jasmine gave me a look. Because DeShawn couldn't even keep a job at Best Buy and now suddenly he's running a tech company? Because that Marcus character shows up with nothing but a suitcase and supposedly has the money to start a business? Because none of this adds up? You're being paranoid. I'm being realistic. Have you seen any actual proof of this business? A business license? Tax documents? Client contracts? I hadn't. But asking would mean admitting I didn't trust my own son. They're adults, Jasmine. I'm not going to interrogate them. Well, someone should. This whole thing smells wrong. After Jasmine left, I tried to push her concerns out of my mind, but they festered. Every package delivery, every late-night work session, every vague explanation made me more uneasy. Then came the credit card applications. I found the first one in the trash, an opened envelope addressed to someone named Patricia J. Harrison. Close to my name, but not quite. The application had been approved. Credit limit, $15,000. I confronted DeShawn immediately. What is this? I demanded, holding up the envelope. He barely glanced at it. Oh, that. It's for the business. We applied for business credit cards using slight variations of common names. It's a strategy to build credit faster. Using fake names? Not fake. Just variations. Lots of businesses do this. It's perfectly legal. Then why is it coming to my address? We used your address as our business address. That's okay, right? We live here. Nothing about this felt okay, but DeShawn seemed so confident, so unconcerned. Maybe I really was being paranoid like he suggested. The credit card applications kept coming. Different names? Always slight variations of common names. Patricia Harrison, Patricia Harrington, Patrick Harris. They'd arrive, DeShawn or Marcus would grab them, and they'd disappear into their room. How many credit cards does a business need? I asked. We're building credit across multiple accounts, Marcus explained smoothly. It's about establishing a strong financial foundation. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my son had finally found direction, that this business was real, that everything was legitimate. But the knot in my stomach kept growing. Things escalated when I came home early from my part-time job at the library and heard voices in DeShawn's room. Multiple voices. I knocked. Yeah? DeShawn called out, "Who's here?" A pause. "Just us, Mom. We're on a conference call." But I'd heard at least 3 distinct voices, and they'd gone silent the moment I knocked. Conference calls didn't work that way. I started paying closer attention, watching, noticing. I noticed that Marcus never left the house during the day. Ever. He'd go out at night sometimes, but never during normal business hours. What kind of business consultant never met with clients in person? I noticed the way they'd close laptop screens when I entered the room. The way conversations would stop mid-sentence when I walked by. The way they'd both tense up whenever a car drove slowly past the house. I noticed that despite 6 months of building their business, they never talked about specific clients, never mentioned success stories, never showed me anything tangible, and I noticed the cash. Stacks of it. I saw it once when Marcus's wallet fell open, hundreds and hundreds of dollars in neat bills. When I mentioned it, he said he'd just cashed a check from a client. Who pays in cash these days? I asked. You'd be surprised. Some small business owners prefer it. Easier for their bookkeeping. Another smooth explanation that almost made sense but didn't quite. The breaking point came 4 months in. I was cleaning the living room and knocked over Marcus's backpack. It spilled open and out tumbled dozens of gift cards. Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Home Depot. Hundreds of dollars worth. When Marcus came home, I was waiting with the gift cards spread on the coffee table. Explain these, I said. Business expenses. We buy them at discount, use them for supplies. It's cheaper than paying retail. There must be $2,000 in gift cards here. Like I said, business expenses. Marcus, I may be old, but I'm not stupid. Tech consultants don't need this many gift cards. What are you really doing? His easy smile faltered for just a second. Mrs. Harris, I understand your concern, but everything we're doing is legitimate. If you want, I can show you our business plan. I don't want to see a business plan. I want to know why my house is filled with packages addressed to fake names, why you have thousands of dollars in gift cards, why credit card applications keep arriving for people who don't exist. Those people do exist. They're clients who— Stop lying to me, I shouted. I'm not an idiot. Something illegal is happening in my house, and I want to know what it is. Now. DeShawn emerged from his room. Mom, calm down. You're overreacting, am I? Then explain it to me. Explain all of it. Right now. DeShawn and Marcus exchanged glances. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Okay, DeShawn said finally. You want the truth? Fine. We're not running a traditional consulting business. We're doing something called retail arbitrage. We buy products online, resell them for profit. That's why we have packages, gift cards, multiple laptops. It's all legitimate e-commerce. Then why lie about it? Because you'd judge us. Because you'd say it's not a real business. Because you have this idea of what success looks like, and buying and selling products doesn't fit that picture. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But something still felt wrong. Show me, I said. Show me your sales. Your inventory. Your accounts. If this is a real business, you'll have records. Another glance between them. Our records are confidential, Marcus said. Trade secrets. I'm sure you understand. I'm your mother, I said to DeShawn. You're living in my house. I'm not asking for trade secrets. I'm asking for proof that I'm not harboring criminals. Criminals? DeShawn's face hardened. That's what you think of me? That I'm a criminal? I think you're lying to me. And I think Marcus is the reason why. Marcus is my business partner and my friend. And yeah, maybe we didn't explain every detail of our business model because it's complicated and we didn't think you'd understand. But that doesn't make us criminals. Then prove it. I don't have to prove anything. I'm a grown man. This is my business. And if you can't trust me, if you can't support me, then maybe Marcus and I should find somewhere else to work. The threat was implicit. If I pushed too hard, I'd lose my son. I backed down. That was my mistake. 2 weeks later, I came home from the library at 3 p.m. and found my front door open. Not unlocked, open, swinging in the breeze. My heart hammering, I stepped inside. DeShawn? Marcus? No answer. The living room was a disaster. Cushions thrown off the couch. Papers scattered everywhere. My desk drawers pulled open, contents dumped on the floor. I ran to DeShawn's room. The door was off its hinges. Inside, the room had been completely ransacked. Laptops gone, papers everywhere. The mattress pulled off the bed. "Don't move," a voice said behind me. I spun around to find 2 people in FBI windbreakers standing in my hallway. A black woman and an Asian man, both with stern expressions and badges on their belts. "Patricia Harris?" the woman asked. "Yes." "What's happening? Where's my son?" "I'm Agent Rodriguez. This is Agent Chen. We have a warrant to search these premises. We need you to step outside." "A warrant? For what?" "Ma'am, outside. Now." I stood on my front porch in shock as more agents swarmed my house. Neighbors came out to watch. Mrs. Patterson from next door filmed on her phone. I wanted to die of shame. Agent Rodriguez eventually came out carrying a box of evidence. "Mrs. Harris, we need to ask you some questions about DeShawn Harris and Marcus Cole." "Where are they? Are they okay?" "They're in custody. We arrested them 3 hours ago at a location in Baltimore. Now, we need to know what you know about their operation." "Operation? I don't... What are you talking about?" Agent Chen pulled out a tablet, showed me photos. My house, my address, my name listed on dozens of documents. "Your son and Mr. Cole have been running a sophisticated identity theft ring out of your home for the past 6 months. They've stolen identities from over 200 victims, opened fraudulent credit accounts, made purchases totaling over $500,000, and used your address as their base of operations." The world tilted. "Identity theft? No. They said they were running a tech business." "There is no tech business, Mrs. Harris. What there is a criminal enterprise that's been using your home as a front." The FBI field office in downtown Baltimore was nothing like I'd seen on TV. No dramatic interrogation rooms with 2-way mirrors, just a bland conference room with fluorescent lights and uncomfortable chairs. Agent Rodriguez sat across from me, a legal pad in front of her. Agent Chen stood by the door. I'd been here for 3 hours, answering the same questions over and over. "Mrs. Harris, I need you to understand the severity of this situation," Agent Rodriguez said. "Your home was the operational center for a criminal enterprise. Your name, your address, your utilities were all used to facilitate identity theft and credit card fraud." "I didn't know," I said for what felt like the 100th time. "I thought they were running a legitimate business. You never questioned the packages, the credit card applications, the strange hours?" "I questioned all of it. But DeShawn is my son." He had explanations. They seemed reasonable at the time. Agent Chen spoke up. "Mrs. Harris, we've been monitoring this operation for 4 months. We have surveillance footage, recorded phone calls, financial records. What we don't have is definitive proof of your involvement. Because I wasn't involved. That's what we're trying to determine, Agent Rodriguez said. Help us understand what you did know. I told them everything. Marcus moving in, the packages, the laptops, the credit cards, the gift cards. Every red flag I'd ignored because I wanted to believe my son was finally making something of himself. Did you ever see them working? Agent Chen asked. Actually see what they were doing on those computers? No, they kept their door closed. Did they ever ask you to sign anything? Open accounts? Make purchases? No, nothing like that. Did you receive money from them? Payments beyond the $400 in rent? Just the rent. And they were always on time with it. Agent Rodriguez made notes. Here's what we know. DeShawn and Marcus were part of a larger network. They weren't the masterminds, those are still at large, but they were key operators. They'd receive stolen identity information, create fake accounts, order products, sell those products for cash. Your address was the drop point. Your utilities provided legitimacy, and your presence in the home provided cover. Cover? A middle-aged woman living in a nice suburban home doesn't raise suspicions. Packages arriving at her address look normal. But 2 young men in an apartment? That draws attention. They used you, Mrs. Harris. The words hit like a slap. Used. My own son had used me. What happens now? I asked. That depends. If we determine you were an unwitting participant, you'll likely face no charges. But if we find evidence of knowing participation, Agent Rodriguez trailed off meaningfully. I could go to prison? Identity theft is a federal crime. Conspiracy charges carry serious penalties. We need to be absolutely certain you weren't complicit. How do I prove I didn't know? You don't prove innocence, Mrs. Harris. We have to prove guilt. But it would help your case if you cooperated fully. Tell us everything, even things that might implicate your son further. I thought about DeShawn, my baby boy, the child I'd raised alone after his father died when he was 5, the boy who'd been on honor roll, who'd won a scholarship to college, who'd had so much potential. I need to talk to him, I said. To DeShawn. I need to understand why. Agent Rodriguez and Agent Chen exchanged glances. That can be arranged, Rodriguez said. But Mrs. Harris, you should know. Your son isn't claiming innocence. He's claiming you were involved. The room tilted. What? In his statement, DeShawn said you knew about the operation. That you allowed them to use your house in exchange for a cut of the profits. That's a lie. I never... Which is why we need your full cooperation, because right now, it's your word against his. They let me go home at 10 p.m. with instructions not to leave town. My house was still a crime scene, yellow tape across the door, but they'd finished processing it. I could stay there but couldn't touch anything in DeShawn's room. I walked through my violated home in a daze. Everything felt contaminated. The couch where Marcus had sat. The kitchen where I'd made them dinner. The living room where packages had piled up. My son had used me. And now he was trying to frame me for his crimes. Jasmine came over the next morning with coffee and determination. We're getting you a lawyer, she said. A good one. I don't care what it costs. I can't afford a good lawyer. Then we'll figure it out. Pat, you're not going to prison because DeShawn decided to be a criminal. He's saying I knew. He's telling them I was part of it. Of course he is. He's trying to save himself. But you have the truth on your side. Do I? I let them stay here. I ignored warning signs. I accepted their rent money without asking where it came from. What if the FBI thinks I should have known? Thinking you should have known isn't the same as knowing. You're not a criminal, Pat. You're a mother who trusted her son. Mr. Patterson, the lawyer Jasmine found, was expensive but thorough. He met with me that afternoon in his office downtown. The good news is the FBI doesn't have hard evidence against you, he said after reviewing my case. No financial records showing transfers to your accounts beyond the rent payments. No communications implicating you. No witnesses placing you in meetings. What's the bad news? Your son's statement is damaging. He claims you were aware of the operation and willfully allowed it to continue. If a jury believes him over you, that's conspiracy charges. Federal conspiracy charges carry minimum sentences. Can they really charge me based on just his word? Combined with circumstantial evidence, the operation ran out of your home for 6 months. You never reported suspicious activity. You accepted money from them. A prosecutor could argue willful blindness at minimum. Willful blindness? The legal concept that you deliberately avoided learning the truth because you knew it was criminal. It's a lower bar than active participation, but still prosecutable. I felt sick. What do? We build your defense. Document everything you questioned, every time you asked for explanations, every suspicion you had. Character witnesses who can testify you're not someone who would knowingly participate in crime, and most importantly, we prepare for the possibility that you might need to testify against your son. I can't do that. Mrs. Harris, your son has already thrown you under the bus. He's not protecting you. He's using you as his scapegoat. You need to protect yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the past 6 months. Every conversation with DeShawn, every smooth explanation from Marcus, every moment I'd pushed down my doubts because I wanted to believe. At 2 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mom? DeShawn's voice calling from jail. DeShawn. I didn't know what else to say. Mom, I need you to listen. This whole thing is a misunderstanding. Marcus got me involved in something I didn't fully understand. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late to back out. The FBI says you told them I knew. That I was part of it. Silence. Then, I had to say something, Mom. They were threatening me with 20 years. My lawyer said if I could show other people were involved, I might get a deal. So you lied and said your mother was a criminal? I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought they'd talk to you. You'd explain you didn't know anything, and that would be that. I didn't think they'd actually consider charging you. But they are considering it, DeShawn. Because of what you said, I'll fix it. I'll tell them I lied. I'll say I was scared and made it up. And then you lose any deal you might have gotten, right? He didn't answer. Which was an answer. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why did you do this? The identity theft, the fraud, all of it. Why? Because I was tired of struggling, Mom. Tired of being broke. Tired of working minimum wage jobs with my college degree. Marcus showed me how easy it was to make real money. And it was easy. Until it wasn't. So you destroyed innocent people's credit, stole their identities, committed federal crimes because it was easy? Don't judge me. You don't know what it's like to be my age in this economy, to have student loans and no prospects, to watch everyone else succeed while you're stuck. So everyone else does it too? Everyone else becomes a criminal because things are hard? Some of us don't have the luxury of moral high ground, Mom. Some of us do what we have to do to survive. This wasn't survival. This was greed. And you know what the worst part is? You dragged me down with you. You used my home, my address, my trust. And when you got caught, you tried to make me take the fall. I'm sorry. I really am. But Mom, I need you to help me. I need you to tell the FBI that I was manipulated. That Marcus was the real criminal and I was just following orders. Were you? Just following orders? Mostly. Marcus set everything up. He had the connections. I just helped. You helped steal from over 200 people, DeShawn. You helped ruin credit, drain bank accounts, cause untold financial damage. That's not just helping. That's being a criminal. So, you're not going to help me? I'm going to tell the truth. That's all I can do. And if the truth doesn't help you, maybe you need to face the consequences of your choices. You'd really let your own son go to prison? You were willing to let your own mother go to prison. So yeah, I guess we're both capable of letting family suffer. I hung up before he could respond. The next morning, Agent Rodriguez called with an update. We've completed our investigation into your potential involvement. Based on the evidence, or lack thereof, we're not pursuing charges against you. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're not completely clear. We need you to testify at DeShawn's trial. Your testimony about his lies regarding your involvement will be crucial. You want me to testify against my son? We want you to tell the truth. If DeShawn lied about your participation to try to get a plea deal, the jury needs to know that. It speaks to his character and credibility. And if I refuse, then we might reconsider whether you were truly unaware of the operation. Mrs. Harris, I understand this is difficult. But your son committed serious federal crimes and then tried to implicate you to save himself. You owe him nothing. She was right. But he was still my son. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of DeShawn and Marcus's operation became clear. They'd been part of a network spanning 5 states. The ringleaders, still at large, would recruit operators like DeShawn and Marcus to handle the physical side, receiving packages, processing orders, laundering money through gift card sales. The victims numbered in the hundreds. I read their stories in the case files Mr. Patterson shared with me. A single mother whose credit was destroyed, making her unable to rent an apartment. An elderly man whose retirement savings were drained. A young couple who lost their down payment for a house, all because my son decided easy money was worth ruining lives. Marcus took a plea deal. 20 years reduced to 8 in exchange for testimony against the network ringleaders and against DeShawn. His lawyer claimed Marcus had been the one manipulated, that DeShawn was actually the more sophisticated operator. Reading Marcus's statement was surreal. In his version, DeShawn was the mastermind who'd recruited him, promising easy money. Marcus was just a broke guy who needed a place to stay and got in over his head. It was complete fiction, but it was effective fiction. The prosecutor was considering Marcus's deal seriously. DeShawn's lawyer advised him to take a plea too. 15 years. But DeShawn refused. I'm not taking 15 years, he told me during a jail visit. I'm going to fight this. And I need you to testify for me, not against me. I'm testifying to the truth. The truth is, I'm your son and I made mistakes. Can't you help me? The truth is, you committed federal crimes and tried to frame me when you got caught. That's what I'm going to testify to. So you're really going to do this? Send your own son to prison. You sent yourself to prison, DeShawn. I'm just refusing to lie for you. He stared at me with such hatred that I barely recognized him. When I get out, don't expect me to forget this. Don't expect me to forgive you. I'll have to live with that, I said quietly, just like you'll have to live with what you did. The trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, I tried to rebuild my life. My neighbors avoided me. Mrs. Patterson, who'd filmed the FBI raid, had told everyone her theories about my involvement. Half the street thought I was a criminal who'd gotten away with it. I quit my library job. Couldn't handle the stares, the whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. Jasmine let me stay with her for a few weeks until I could stand being in my own house again. The worst part was the guilt. Not guilt over what DeShawn said I did. I knew I was innocent of that. But guilt over missing the signs. Over wanting so badly to believe my son had finally found direction that I'd ignored obvious red flags. Dr. Williams, the therapist Jasmine insisted I see, had a different perspective. You're a mother who loved her son and wanted him to succeed, she said. That's not a character flaw. That's human nature. But I should have known. The packages, the credit cards, all of it. I should have called the police months ago. Why didn't you? Because he's my son. Because calling the police on your own child feels impossible. Because I kept hoping I was wrong. And that's understandable. Patricia, you're not responsible for DeShawn's choices. You're responsible for yours. And your choice now is whether to tell the truth or to protect someone who is willing to destroy you. He's still my son. And you're still a person who deserves protection. Your son made his choice when he used your home for criminal activity. He made another choice when he tried to implicate you. Now you get to make your choice. The choice felt impossible. Testify and help convict my son, or refuse and risk being seen as complicit. Send DeShawn to prison or compromise my own integrity. I thought about the victims. The mother who couldn't rent an apartment. The elderly man who lost his savings. The young couple whose dreams were destroyed. They were somebody's children too. Somebody's parents. Somebody's loved ones. DeShawn had hurt them without a second thought. Because it was easy. Because he wanted money. The morning of the trial, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and barely recognized myself. 3 months of stress had aged me years. Gray hair I'd always dyed now showed at my temples. Lines around my eyes had deepened. I looked like what I was, a woman whose son had betrayed her in the worst possible way. Jasmine drove me to the courthouse. "You don't have to do this," she said as we parked. "You could tell them you're too emotional to testify." And let DeShawn get away with lying? Let him possibly walk free because I was too weak to tell the truth? He's your son, Pat. No one would blame you for protecting him. I would blame me. Those victims deserve justice. And honestly, so do I. The courtroom was packed. I saw Marcus in an orange jumpsuit being led in by marshals. He'd already been sentenced, 8 years just like his plea deal promised. Now he was here to testify against DeShawn. DeShawn entered next, also in orange. Our eyes met across the room. I expected anger, maybe hatred. Instead, I saw fear. Pure, desperate fear. Good. He should be afraid. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had surveillance footage of DeShawn and Marcus meeting with other members of the network. Recorded phone calls discussing stolen identities. Financial records showing hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing through accounts in fake names. Testimony from victims whose lives had been destroyed. Then came Marcus's testimony. He painted a picture of DeShawn as the experienced criminal who'd recruited him, taught him the operation, and threatened him when he wanted out. DeShawn told me if I tried to leave, he'd make sure I took the fall for everything, Marcus testified. He said he had connections, that he could make evidence point to me. I was scared. That's why I stayed involved. It was masterful lying. I almost believed it myself, and I'd lived with both of them for 6 months. DeShawn's lawyer tried to poke holes in Marcus's story, but the evidence backed up most of what Marcus said. The phone records, the financial transactions, the witness statements, they all supported the prosecution's narrative. Then it was time for victim testimony. A parade of people whose lives DeShawn had helped destroy. Each story was heartbreaking. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman whose retirement was stolen. I worked 40 years to save that money. Now I'm 73 and working part-time at a grocery store because my savings are gone. James Miller, the young father. We lost our house. My kids had to change schools. My wife left me because of the stress. These people took everything from us. Sandra Washington, the single mother. I couldn't rent an apartment because my credit was destroyed. I had to move back in with my parents at age 35. I lost custody of my daughter temporarily because I didn't have stable housing. I watched DeShawn's face during the testimony. No emotion, no remorse. Just blank indifference, like these were characters in a movie, not real people whose lives he'd destroyed. That's when I knew. The son I'd raised was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed. Maybe I'd been so busy trying to make up for his father's death, trying to be both parents, that I'd raised someone who felt entitled to take whatever he wanted without consequences. The prosecution called me on day 3. "Mrs. Harris, please describe your relationship with the defendant," the prosecutor began. "DeShawn is my son, my only child. I raised him alone after his father died." "And when did you first meet Marcus Cole?" I walked through the whole story. Marcus moving in. The supposed tech business. The packages, credit cards, gift cards. Every red flag I'd noticed, and every explanation they'd given. "Did your son ever tell you the truth about what they were doing?" the prosecutor asked. No. Every time I questioned something, he had an explanation. Looking back, I can see the lies. But at the time, I wanted to believe him. Why? Because he's my son. Because I wanted him to finally be successful. Because admitting he was lying meant admitting I'd failed as a mother. Did you profit from their criminal activity in any way? Just the $400 a month in rent. I reported that income on my taxes. I kept records. Beyond that, I never received anything. Did your son ever claim you were involved in or aware of the operation? This was the crucial question. I looked at DeShawn. He was staring at his hands. Yes. When he was first arrested, DeShawn told the FBI that I knew about the identity theft and allowed it to continue in exchange for money. That was a complete lie. How do you know it was a lie? Because I lived through those 6 months. I questioned their activities constantly. I suspected something was wrong. But I never knew it was identity theft. I never agreed to be part of any criminal enterprise. And I certainly never received money beyond the rent. Why do you think your son lied about your involvement? To try to get a better deal. To deflect blame. To make himself seem less guilty by spreading the guilt around. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. The defense attorney's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Harris, isn't it true that you benefited financially from having your son and Mr. Cole living with you? I received rent, which I reported as income. Rent that came from criminal activity. I didn't know that at the time. But you suspected something was wrong, correct? You just testified to that? I suspected, yes. But suspecting and knowing are different things. Yet you did nothing. You didn't call the police. You didn't demand they leave. You allowed suspicious activity to continue in your home for 6 months. Because DeShawn is my son. Because I wanted to believe his explanations. Because calling the police on your own child is nearly impossible. So you chose to look the other way? I chose to trust my son. That was my mistake. But it wasn't a crime. The defense attorney tried to paint me as willfully blind, as someone who knew or should have known and chose profit over morality. But the evidence didn't support it. The FBI had found no financial connection between me and the operation beyond the rent. No communications implicating me. No actions showing participation. After 2 hours of testimony, I was dismissed. I sat in the gallery and watched the rest of the trial unfold. DeShawn took the stand in his own defense. His lawyer had advised against it. Taking the stand meant facing cross-examination. But DeShawn was confident he could talk his way out of this. He was wrong. Mr. Harris, you testified that Marcus Cole was the primary operator of this scheme. Yet we have recordings of you making calls to sell stolen merchandise. How do you explain that? Marcus told me to make those calls. I was following his instructions. You're 30 years old with a college degree. Are you claiming you didn't understand that what you were doing was illegal? I knew it was a gray area. I didn't fully understand the scope of it. A gray area? Mr. Harris, you were using stolen identities to commit fraud. That's not a gray area. That's a federal crime. Marcus told me it was arbitrage. Legal business. Yet you never questioned why you needed to use fake names? Why packages came to different addresses? Why everything was conducted in cash? DeShawn stumbled over his answers. The prosecutor destroyed him systematically, showing how many times he'd lied in his testimony, how his story conflicted with the evidence, how he'd tried to implicate others to save himself. Then came the question about me. Mr. Harris, you initially told the FBI that your mother was aware of and participated in this operation. Was that true? Long pause. No. So you lied to federal agents? I was scared. I thought if I could show other people were involved, I'd get a better deal. So you were willing to send your own mother to prison to save yourself? I didn't think it would go that far. I thought they'd investigate and realize she wasn't involved. But you were willing to take that risk? To potentially ruin your mother's life? I made a mistake. You made several mistakes, Mr. Harris, including the mistake of thinking you could lie your way out of consequences. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. I attended, though DeShawn's lawyer had asked me not to. Your presence might influence the judge negatively, he'd said. Good. I'd replied. The judge was a stern black woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen too many young men waste their potential. Mr. Harris, you had every advantage, she said. Education. A loving mother, no record, yet you chose to victimize hundreds of innocent people, and when caught, you attempted to implicate your own mother in your crimes. She sentenced him to 18 years in federal prison. No parole on federal charges. He'd serve at least 15. DeShawn's face crumpled. He looked at me, pleading silently for, what? Comfort? Forgiveness? Some sign that I'd wait for him? I gave him nothing. Just looked at him the way he'd looked at his victims. with indifference. After sentencing, the prosecutor approached me in the hallway. "Mrs. Harris, I want you to know, your testimony was crucial. DeShawn's attempt to implicate you showed the jury his character. It helped us get a conviction. How many of the victims will get their money back? Very little, unfortunately. The money's mostly gone, but at least they have justice. And they have you to thank for that. Justice. It felt hollow. Those people's lives were still ruined. My son was going to prison. My home had been violated. My reputation destroyed, but I had told the truth. That had to count for something. Jasmine helped me sell the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many memories. Too much violation. We found a small condo across town where no one knew me. No one knew my story. I got a job at a different library. Started over. Built a quiet life. DeShawn wrote to me from prison. Long letters explaining, justifying, asking for forgiveness. I read the first few, then stopped. They all said the same thing. It wasn't really his fault. He'd been influenced. He'd made mistakes, but he was still a good person. He was my son, and I owed him my support. I owed him nothing. Dr. Williams helped me process the guilt. "You didn't fail as a mother," she said over and over. "You raised a child who made bad choices. That's on him, not you. But I should have seen the signs earlier. I should have what? Been psychic? Patricia, you did everything a mother should do. You loved him. You supported him. You tried to believe in him. His choices were his own. It took me 2 years to fully accept that. 2 years of therapy, of rebuilding, of learning to forgive myself for not being perfect. I never visited DeShawn in prison. Never responded to his letters. When he called, I didn't accept the charges. Some people called me heartless. Mrs. Patterson from my old neighborhood told anyone who'd listen that I'd abandoned my son in his darkest hour. Let them talk. They hadn't lived through what I'd lived through. They hadn't been used, lied to, and nearly prosecuted because their child decided easy money was worth destroying lives. 5 years after the trial, I ran into one of the victims at a grocery store. Sandra Washington, the single mother who'd lost her apartment and temporarily lost custody of her daughter. She recognized me. I braced for anger. "Mrs. Harris?" she said. "I wanted to thank you for testifying, for helping put those men away." "I didn't do it for thanks. I know. But you did it anyway. And because of you, my daughter knows that even when people do terrible things, there are still good people willing to stand up for what's right." "How are you doing? Did you get your daughter back?" "I did. It took a year, but I got her back. I rebuilt my credit. I have an apartment now. A job. We're okay. It's been hard, but we survived. I'm glad. Your son made terrible choices, but you made the right one. Don't let anyone tell you different." Those words meant more to me than any therapy session, any well-meaning friend's reassurance. Because Sandra Washington knew. She'd lived the consequences of my son's choices, and she was telling me I'd done right by refusing to protect him from those consequences. My name is Patricia Harris. I'm 60 years old. My son and his partner ran an identity theft ring out of my home for 6 months. They stole from over 200 people. My son tried to implicate me in his crimes to save himself, and I testified against him. Some people think that makes me a bad mother. I think it makes me a person who values truth over convenient lies, who values justice over misplaced loyalty. Would I do it again? Every time. Because the alternative, lying to protect, someone who'd hurt so many people, wasn't something I could live with. If you ever find yourself in a position where protecting someone you love means betraying your own integrity, remember, love doesn't mean enabling. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for someone who wouldn't do the same for you. I loved my son. I always will. But I loved the truth more. And I loved myself enough to refuse to be his scapegoat. What would you do if your child committed a serious crime? Would you protect them at all costs, or would you let justice take its course? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about family betrayal, impossible choices, and finding strength when everything falls apart. Until next time, remember, Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to save someone from the consequences of their own actions. Even when that someone is your child,